While there are plenty of fighters that feared a matchup against Khabib Nurmagomedov, some couldn't help looking for trouble. These sorry figures learned the hard way never to challenge the undefeated athlete. Even though Khabib stepped away from the game, that didn't stop some loose cannons from issuing another challenge to the fighter. If you don't know who we're talking about, keep watching to find out. First up, a fighter's desperation. Tony Ferguson seems to have accepted the fact that he'll never face Khabib Nurmagomedov, but that won't stop him from publicly criticizing the retired former UFC lightweight champion and calling him out to face him. After being knocked out by Michael Chandler in a meme-worthy front kick at UFC 274 earlier this month, Ferguson is coming off the most savage knockout loss of all time. So savage, in fact, that McGregor couldn't help but chime in to take a crack at the knockout. The 33-year-old took out his phone and made a joke about his opponent being a chicken McNugget on Twitter. One of the worst was a photograph of Ferguson's face in the middle of a knockout, which the Dubliner mistook for the famous McDonald's nugget. Ferguson even later responded to it. He has vowed to go on despite being on a 4-bout losing streak and being well past his peak, but it appears his time as a top contender is over. In his prime, the former interim champion had a 12-fight winning streak in the UFC, a world title belt, and was widely regarded as the man who could actually defeat Nurmagomedov. Next, we have the truth of the matter. Ferguson and the Eagle were actually scheduled to fight 5 different times, but due to a series of misfortunes, they were never able to do it while Khabib was still with the UFC. Following the death of his father in October 2020, Nurmagomedov retired from the sport, and he appeared to be pleased in his retirement almost 2 years later. Fans and critics alike admired his choice to discontinue the sport without the support of his father. Everybody wished him well and hailed him as the truest undefeated champion in the history of the UFC. Ferguson recently offered that they coach against one another on The Ultimate Fighter, finally accepting that a bout between the two will never happen. The Ultimate Fighter, TUF, is a mixed martial arts reality program in which a group of athletes battle for a UFC contract under the tutelage of 2 veteran stars who serve as opposing coaches. Ferguson stated on the MMA Hour that he truly believed what Khabib's father meant when he claimed that the two were destined to compete, and that, in any case, he'd love to coach against Khabib on The Ultimate Fighter. Not exactly the kind of challenge we were expecting, but definitely a rivalry of a different kind, which we could look forward to if it ends up happening. And now for Ferguson being Ferguson. In true Ferguson fashion, he taunted Nurmagomedov by saying that he could all but guarantee the fact that his coaching is far superior in comparison. That's something that few people are aware of. He even taunted Nurmagomedov further by pressing the matter, saying that coaching is harmless and doesn't require Ferguson to break any ribs to prove a point. He mentioned his accolades and achievements as well, mentioning how his coaching has a significantly far reach and that he is able to assemble a strong team in a short amount of time. He mentioned the time that he formed a squad to go on a 12-fight winning streak and claimed he knew how to pull it off all over again, just to beat the likes of Nurmagomedov. He remembered how the pandemic affected their bout, which was meant to happen, and wasn't happy recalling that time. He recalled Nurmagomedov a scared little dude for running from the fight, even though the world of sports entertainment and everyone in the UFC specifically knew well enough that Khabib had legitimate family reasons for excusing himself. This comment was clearly in really bad taste. Hopefully he has the sense not to discuss Khabib's family the way others have in the past, because they had to pay a heavy price for it. Luckily, Ferguson dialed back on his comments soon after speaking them and said that he could actually respect the reasons. But that doesn't change the fact that Ferguson is incredibly desperate for a bout of literally any kind, and that too in any sport. He claims he wants to play against the unbeaten Russian in any sport or game, putting an end to their long-standing feud once and for all. It's not often you see a rivalry so strong that an athlete wants to step out of his comfort zone in order to see things through till the end. Next, he's making things very clear. Ferguson set things straight by mentioning exactly how he pictured it would go, too. Guess he didn't want to leave too much to the imagination for fans. He said that it doesn't matter what the game the two are playing, because simply going out there, shaking Nurmagomedov's hand, squashing their beef, and then moving on would be good. He later added that it would actually be more than that. Pretty cool, in fact. He concluded his mixed bag of a speech by saying he'd love to compete against Nurmagomedov, and believes that if they were both on The Ultimate Fighter, then there would be a lot of hype around the show. He claims that the hype would be so astronomical that everyone would watch. The question, however, is will fans be tuning in to watch Nurmagomedov and Ferguson, or just Nurmagomedov? Clearly, Ferguson may have the wrong idea about what would be bringing that kind of viewership to the show, and it's clearly not going to be him, especially after his last few bouts and the chicken nugget moment. Regardless Regardless of what we think, he's convinced of how things will go down. But he's pretty clear that even though he respects the fans of the sport, he won't be hesitating to call Nurmagomedov a bitch if he doesn't sign along the dotted line. Time for some other news, starting with Paddy the Baddy for champ. Paddy Pimblett might be a future British UFC champion if the UFC plays their cards just right. Dan Hardy, who became the first Englishman to compete for a UFC championship when he challenged Georges St. Pierre for the welterweight title in 2010, echoes this sentiment pretty loudly. Hardy himself lost to St. Pierre by a unanimous decision when it went to the judges in that fight, but the Outlaw believes that Paddy the Baddy can succeed where he previously failed. It's refreshing to see old blood hype up new blood and look out for them. During a recent appearance on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, Hardy stated that the UFC should avoid rushing Pimblett into the top 15 until the Liverpudlian irons out some of the flaws in his game. He expressed how Paddy needs to improve as a fighter, which is something we're sure he'll manage. He's definitely an electrifying personality both inside and outside the octagon, and has the makings of a future champion in our books as well. The UFC recently also unveiled Pimblett's next opponent for the upcoming Fight Night card, which is set to take place in London, England. The 27-year-old will be taking on none other than Syndicate's MMA's Jordan Levitt, who's got a 3-1 UFC record and 10-1 in his overall MMA career. We can't wait to tune in to UFC Fight Night 211 on July 23rd at London's O2 Arena. Not too much longer now. Next, Alex Pereira was ready. After only his third fight in the organization, Alex Pereira may be on his way to become the #1 contender in the middleweight division if he defeats one of his toughest opponents yet, Sean Strickland, at UFC 276. Despite having a tiny sample size in his MMA career, the former two-division Glory champion has long been viewed as a potential opponent for reigning 185-pound king Israel Adesanya due to their previous kickboxing confrontations. Pereira so far has a pretty great 2-0 undefeated record against Adesanya, including a devastating knockout in 2017 that served as the last Stylebender's final kickboxing outing before he made his transition to the MMA. Despite the fact that Pereira has significantly less UFC experience than Adesanya, his friend and mentor Glover Teixeira believes it won't be a factor in the next bout coming up. Even though Pereira has only 6 fights to his name, Teixeira believes that the manner in which he approaches his matches sets him apart from the usual MMA fighter. Teixeira understands Pereira still has a lot to learn, but he's already well versed in the transition he's made from kickboxing to MMA, after being regarded as one of the finest kickboxers on the planet. And finally, Conor McGregor, far from done. Conor McGregor isn't ruling out a return to boxing just yet, but his main priority right now is on getting fit again, so he can return to the UFC as soon as possible. The former two-division champion hasn't fought since suffering a fractured leg in a TKO loss to Dustin Poirier in the main event of UFC 264 this past July, which was pretty brutal. The fighter says he still needs to work on getting medically approved to compete again, but he believes that moment is finally soon approaching. While on vacation in Monaco, Sky Sports Boxing got up with McGregor to get an update on his situation and whether he plans to return to boxing, where the athlete responded saying that while boxing is his first love, his UFC story is still being written. We can't wait to see his comeback. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think of Ferguson's challenge? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.